Hey y'all, welcome back to DC Motorworks. Today I've got in front of me a 1996 C220. This is from the W202 generation of C-Class. And today we're going to use this as an example as why a lot of shops are no longer servicing older Mercedes-Benz. Let's get started. So this vehicle came into us last week with a few complaints. Mainly it was the check engine light. Had this door strap here that was broken, so the door was just swinging freely. This driver's window wasn't working. As you can see, we've got it all apart here. And lastly, that the air conditioning wasn't working. So got all this apart, realized that the window, of course, did not move whenever you push the switch. The only thing, you could hear the relay clicking in the rear, so we knew that the switch was working. So our next step here was to remove this door panel, and what we found is just the motor was unplugged. That's all it was. Plugged it back in, and it wanted to work, but someone had actually taped and glued this window shut, essentially, and it was like that for so long that it took multiple tries and lubrication and working the motor back and forth to actually free the window from its channels. But we got that done, cleaned everything up. It's now working properly as it's supposed to. While we had it apart, we went ahead and replaced that door strap as well. So now the door goes into all its positions like it's supposed to. And we still got the door panel off because, as is common on these older ones, the tabs that hold the door panel here, there's one here, one down in here, a couple others, they will break free from the door panel. They're just hot glued on from the factory. So we've got it sitting over there getting some fresh glue drying on them so we can put this door panel back on. So here's that door panel. See, we've got this tab here, this one here, and that third one there. We've just got some fresh epoxy here. This is two separate pieces of the panel here that were kind of loose and separating, so we'll have this ready to go here in a few minutes. Let's go ahead and show you what we went through to fix the check engine light and some of the other concerns with this vehicle. So our first step in diagnosing the check engine light concern was, of course, to read codes. What you need for that is one of these here. So this is a 38-pin connector on the Star Diagnostic system, which actually runs a separate program that Mercedes used back in these mid-90s up through around 02, depending on the chassis. It's called HHT, or handheld tester, that would diagnose all the systems in the vehicle. You'll say, hey Kimmer, this is a 96 model, doesn't this just have an OBD2 connector? And it does, but all that does is read out engine fault codes under this cover here. It's that 38-pin connector found on most all 90s Benz models in order to read all of the modules. So we hooked that up and saw it had code stored for feedback and drive authorization. Feedback was from the drive authorization lamps, which are located here on the rear view mirror. See those red and green little lights. If we lock and unlock the car, you can see when you lock it, they're red. You unlock it, they're green. So that's part of your drive authorization system. So there's a special encryption for the key to start this vehicle. So if you don't have that correct, or there's an issue with the system, you'll see both lights will alternate flashing. But we were getting no response from these at all. But the client had just provided us with the flat blade key. And thankfully, he has the remote key, because these have been unavailable from Mercedes-Benz for many years now. So once we had that, we actually got some feedback from these lamps. where they were alternating, showing that there was a fault. And reading out the fault codes, we just see there was just a bunch of miscellaneous messages of drive authorization, just the same as before. What we found out is just weak key batteries. All that trouble for weak key batteries. Put a set of key batteries in. They do use 2. With that, the key was able to communicate properly with the system, and that took care of that code. We were able to clear it, and the code stayed out. Unfortunately, the check engine light stayed on. But a note about this system, these mid-90s models with this early drive authorization system are very difficult to diagnose. I'll show you here, there's actually about 4 different modules that this goes through in these older models, and even these engines in this era had multiple different modules to run them. So these kind of tie in together. So here, this is what was called the HFM generation, or hot film mass airflow. Your engine computer here. But you've also got, depending on the model, you'll have like a carb module, you'd have an e-gas module, you'd have your OVP, which is your over voltage protection relay. You can have issues with that. You've got multifunction relays. So this is the specific ignition relay for the 4-cylinder. You've also got a diagnostic module, which is located on the driver's floorboard. You've got the DOS, or Drive Authorization System module, behind the instrument cluster. But then, tied into that, for your remote locking, you have an RCL, or Remote Central Locking module, which is located in the trunk. But that also communicates with your PSE, or Pneumatic Systems Equipment vacuum pump, which on these older models is generally located under the rear seat. That controls your vacuum door locks. All of these modules to talk to each other in order for this system to work. So what we found, like I said before, is the check engine light was staying on even after we fixed every code that was in any module. There were no codes at all in the whole car, other than one of our other concerns here, is that the AC doesn't work. Here you can see this is the connector from the body side for the AC compressor clutch, but we've actually removed it now. But the connector was actually still attached to this and floating around. It was broken off the AC compressor down there, and we thought, we'll just trace the wire down, reattach the wire, and this will be working. But no, there's no coil in that clutch to activate the compressor. At some point, I guess it's been removed, so now it'll need a replacement clutch or compressor. Compressor's pretty reasonable, so with the age of this vehicle, we're just going to put a new compressor on it. But we even hooked up a light bulb to this circuit in order to get that code to clear, because the computer wanted to see some kind of load on that circuit. Even then, not a single code in the system after this. Check engine light would not go off. What that's due to, she'll say, oh, your engine computer's bad, or your instrument cluster's failed and the light bulb's staying on all the time. But no, it's actually one of those other modules I told you about that's tied into this system, and it's the diagnostic module. So that is meant to read and store information and trigger fault codes and so forth. not from the actual engine computer. So there's a initialization, reset, relearn, whatever terminology you want to use in order to reset that module. We did that. Now the check engine light is off. We have no codes. Now this car is happy, ready to go. We're going to do some other work while we're here. It's going to get a new AC compressor. Like I said, we went ahead and fixed this window and the door strap. It's also going to get the headliner redone. See, it's falling there. But otherwise, the rest of this car is in very nice shape. Has 107,000 miles. It's this beautiful green. So we're gonna get this back going for the client, and you'll have a nice little car to ride around in. So as you all can see here, there's a lot that goes on into diagnosing and repairing these older Mercedes-Benz models. There is some that old 90s computer technology that's pretty complicated, and if you don't have the right knowledge or tools like the old HHT based system with the 38-pin connector and just the knowledge of how these systems work and how they communicate, you can spend thousands of dollars and multiple weeks or days and trying to figure out issues like this. And like I said, for this one, it was something as simple as a pair of key batteries. That if this went to someone unknowing, who knows where it could have gone from there. This car sat for many years. You can see some of the build up here, and this may have very well been the reason. And it was such a simple repair at the end of the day. So between the older technology in these vehicles and also parts scarcity and just time waiting on parts and not being able to get them and having to source alternative methods, a lot of shops have given up working on these older models, even if they specialize in Mercedes-Benz. I know of 3 shops in our area that have just recently decided they're done with it. They don't want to deal with it. They don't have the people for it. A lot of these guys that have this knowledge are retiring and no longer doing this. So they've lost those employees, and that knowledge isn't getting passed down, and the cars will sit for a couple weeks waiting on parts. So they just say, we're done. But thankfully we're not one of those. We really enjoy working on these older models and plan to do it for a long time. So if any of you all have a classic Mercedes of this vintage and have any questions or want to get some work done, you're near to the Atlanta area. We're in northern Atlanta in Alpharetta. Give us a call or shoot us a message and we'll be happy to take care of it. And if you're far away and just want to get some advice or talk about cars, we'll be glad to chat with you. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. You can subscribe below, and if you have any suggestions or anything you want to see, let us know. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.